At Fit to Hunt, we help hunters prepare for their outdoor adventures by providing easy to follow, scientifically based workouts that have them ready to fill tags. Our friend Josh Craig of Western Hunter 101 does the same thing, only he helps newbies to Western hunting fast track their learning curve and find success with everything from coaching on preseason draws, gear, scouting, and a whole lot more. Are you ready to learn about an extremely cool service that will boost your odds on your next bucket list hunt? Episode 19 of the Fit to Hunt podcast, powered by Wilderness Athlete, starts now. Josh, man, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You enjoying the mild weather outside?
I'll tell you, we just got back. We 2 weeks ago we went to Colorado
Uh-huh.
for family vacation, and then I squeezed in a couple of scouting days in there while we were at it.
Yeah,
Uh, mainly just to show the girls, one of my elk hunting spots and stuff.
sure.
But it was 70 degrees out there, and then got down to the 40s at night, and that was pretty cool. And I was expecting when I got back to Missouri, it was going to be hot and humid, and it was actually there for that first week we were home was pretty nice,
Right.
and then this week Missouri showed up.
Oh my
So
gosh. And I was telling someone at the gym today too. I said, I can't complain like too much because for the most part, June was beautiful. I mean, then it got a little humid here and there, but I mean, it wasn't like this. I think today they said it was what 106 heat index or something like that.
sure, yeah, I think that sounds about right.
And you were doing what today?
So today I was actually hauling wheat to St. Louis.
Okay. All right.
So I was sitting in a semi truck today.
Uh,
So
I, I hope it
I
was
was
an
in the
air.
air conditioner.
I still say I hope it was an air conditioned semi truck, man. So
Yep.
well, hey, this is exciting stuff. We obviously we help people get physically ready for going hunting. And what you do is to, I think, get everybody ready to go that has no clue as to what they're doing if they want to go after an elk, a moose, a mule deer, or whatever. So, man, tell us about what you do and how you do it.
Okay, so I'll back up just a little bit and kind of start a little bit about me. So I love hunting. I've been a extremely avid hunter since I was a little kid. My dad always made sure that I had everything I needed to go hunting, at least the necessity stuff. I didn't have anything real fancy when I was a kid, but he made sure I had enough stuff to go. Um and we always talked about going elk hunting.
Hmm.
He actually bought me a rifle when I was like 13 to take elk hunting someday. And I still use that rifle today. Um, but for me, it was really intimidating to get started.
Yeah.
Just with I didn't know about having to have a guide or how to get a tag or how that worked. And actually, right out of high school, my dad took me. We went to Montana, and I toured a couple guide schools. I was actually going to go and be
Oh,
an
okay.
elk guide.
Yeah.
Life happened. I ended up not doing that, which I kind of regret. I'm happy where I'm at. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But that would have been a good experience. Um, but got into my more adult life, and you don't know what it costs. You don't really know how to figure out what all of it's going to cost. Every state's different.
Hmm.
Um, so I eventually got to a point where I knew I was going. Like, I'm getting older because my wife and I will go out west a lot. We hike a lot, backpack.
Sure.
Like spend a lot of time out west, um, but just not with a tag in my pocket. And we were out there on a hiking camping trip, and I told my wife, I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm not getting any younger. Like, I've got to figure this out. I'm not a
Hmm.
young dumb kid anymore. It's not like I don't have any money. Like, I've got to be able to figure this out. And so I just dove in, and I spent several years just figuring it out the hard way.
Okay.
Was too bullheaded to hire a guide, and just I just and I'm the type, when I get into something, like, I just like I'm just completely immersed in it.
Right.
And so I consumed a lot of content, and I eventually got figured out. And and then I got to where I was starting to help some other guys, because on Facebook, or social media, there's a lot of hunting groups and stuff, and there was a lot of guys that were in the same boat that I had just been in, prior to. So
Mhm.
I would reach out and try to help guys along and stuff. And my wife's like, "Well, why don't you do something where you can actually help people?"
Right.
To do something bigger than just, sit here at the kitchen table messaging all the time while we're eating dinner and why don't you do something, worthwhile? And I'm like,
Sure.
well, okay, sure. She's got good ideas. So I'm like, yeah, we ought to try to figure that out. And, it just kind of morphed from there. And, um, at this point, so I ended up, so what I did is I bought a course to learn how to build a course, if that makes sense. And
Sure.
honestly, what we do now isn't really necessarily a course anyways, but that's just kind of the direction we went when we got started.
Right.
Um, and part of that was I had to, or one of my assignments, I guess you could say, in learning that was I had to interview 100 aspiring Western hunters just to figure out what everybody's issues were. And, because I had my own, experience of what it was like, trying to figure it out. And I had my own struggles and everything. Um, and what that did two things. One, it really got me out of my shell because I grew up, on a farm. I've worked on my family's farm
Sure.
most of my life. I mean, I've worked construction and other stuff, with other people. It's not like I was a hermit under a rock or something, but communication and doing like what we're doing right now was kind of not something that I was very familiar with. So that it 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 allowed me to talk to a lot of different guys and get used to that, but it also showed me exactly what everybody was for sure having struggles with. And there was a small handful of things. The number one, putting a tag in your pocket. Like
Right.
that's the hardest thing, or that's not necessarily the hardest. It's actually one of the easier things to do. But it's also the number one most intimidating because every state has a different process, a different point system, a different, the way they allocate tags. It's all every single one of them's different. Um, and really, if you're going to do it, you should be applying in all of them. So you should really figure them all out.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the first thing that we do that we dive into. And then from there, we just cover everything down to caping your buck or bull out on the mountain and everything like that you would need to know to
Right.
plan your hunt. Um, Everything from building points, e-scouting, gear. Gear is a big one. You're in the hunting industry,
Right.
you know that they are very good at convincing you need to buy something that you probably don't need, you
Right.
probably just want.
Right.
Um, and I kind of have a love-hate relationship. Anybody that's followed much of my content knows that I'm like, I'm kind of wish-washy there because I do like, gear, but at
Sure.
the same time, I'm
Sure.
like, that shouldn't be the thing that holds a guy back from getting started. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like there are a few things a guy needs, but he doesn't need everything to get started. So we talk about that. We talk about using public land.
Mhm.
There's a lot of fences, a lot of livestock, even on public land, and where guys can get confused when they run into a gate that's got a sign on it. What's that mean? Can I
Yeah.
can I go through here? Can I even open this gate? What? There's a lot to using public land. The rules on the trails. There's a right of way on a trail. If you meet a pack string, the pack string has the right of way, and it's your responsibility to get out of their way and keep everybody safe. And there's a certain way to do that. And for me, I've been around horses my whole life. That's not a big deal. But for
Right.
somebody that maybe has never seen a horse alive in their life, and all of a sudden they come around a corner and there's 10 of them in a line on a narrow trail and
Right.
steep cliff or something, that's a good way to have a wreck pretty quick.
Yeah.
So, we cover all that kind of stuff, in the field meat care,
Mhm.
camping, packing food. What should you pack? How should you do it? Mental toughness, um, fitness. You
Right.
cover the fitness part for us. We send everybody to you for that.
Right.
Um, so that's kind of in a nutshell, of the lessons end of it. But we also have the full send brotherhood. So anybody that joins,
Yep.
and we meet once a week, via Zoom. Every Thursday evening we meet and we just talk. We come up with a different topic, once a week. Sometimes it's, not, sometimes it's just, if you guys got questions, let's talk about that. Or
Right.
sometimes we'll have a guest. You were a guest here a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
Um, and we'll just talk. It's real casual, real laid back, and that way, whatever somebody happens to be working on that week, we can all kind of get together and work it out.
We're there. So, and I love it because, Western Hunter 101. But this really feels like you go more than just a 101 level. Sounds like you're really getting into a whole lot more when you're talking about caping out an elk. I mean, that's not 101 stuff right there. So, do you have guys that are repeating this? Are they coming back around? Do you typically have new clientele coming through when you're doing these?
So so the lessons themselves, like as far as the caping
Hmm.
and all that goes, so we've got, I think there's 13 and a half hours of content that's been pre-recorded
Okay.
as far as like the information and all that. And so like the caping, um we actually go through while I'm breaking down a bull elk,
Oh
and
wow.
we talk about leaving the proof of sex and how to, cut
Hmm.
around that. And, where, if you're going to get the bull caped for a taxidermist, where actually do you need to make those cuts? Cause obviously your taxidermist isn't on the mountain with you. And
Right. Right.
he's, if you're going to preserve that trophy, if you want to make a shoulder mount out of it, you got to cut it in the right spot.
100%.
So we go through all that, and I've taken clips and videos out of me actually doing that, and then I
Yeah.
kind of explain it along the way,
Yeah.
sitting here in this chair, but I add in, clips and videos along with it. So
So of all the people that you've worked with, let's ask it this way. Like who was, we don't want to name names, but like the most novice of the novice. Like I said, somebody that probably had never stepped foot anywhere. Do you get guys like that too? That, I mean, we've all deer hunted, we've all turkey hunted, but are you getting people that have never hunted before that are coming in and saying, "Hey, I want to go do this"?
yep. So there two guys come to mind. They're both
Uh-huh.
adult onset hunters.
Okay.
So one guy from Virginia, um, which I don't hear a lot out of him.
Hmm.
But the other one would be Anthony, and you know Anthony.
I know Anthony.
So
Yep.
so he's an adult onset hunter. So he's deer hunted for a couple years.
Hmm.
So I would call that very novice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he's got his first elk tag this year.
Hmm.
We're working through helping him plan for hopefully to notch that first tag this fall. So
Man, I was talking to him too. It's like, it's like, who's going with you? And he said, me. And I said, you? He's like, yeah, I asked buddies and I couldn't find anybody to go. And I thought, man, that's ballsy, right? Like I've never
yes.
gone, I've never done it. I'm going to take this course. He's doing one of our 3-month backcountry programs. And I was like, all right, man. I was like, I can't wait to hear how this thing ends. It's going to be a story either way you slice it.
Yep. Yep.
That's very
It's
cool.
pretty cool too. He's going to a place that I have been, so it
Uh-huh.
is nice that I can help him with some inside stuff, especially about roads and things like that, and where he
Hmm.
can and can't get to.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's the deal. That a guy can definitely do that on his own. There's no reason a guy can't go do this on his own.
Hmm.
You just it you just have to be prepared for it, and know what your limits are going to be. Um, but if you don't have anybody to kind of work with you through that, that's going to be kind of hard to figure out too.
Yeah, I would think so. Now, in terms of like, you mentioned because Anthony's Illinois, and you talked about the Virginia guy. Um, like I assume, like us, you probably are working with people kind of all over the United States. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we've got guys from Texas to New York and South Dakota to Florida
How are they
and
finding
about
you?
everywhere
Are,
in between.
are they just finding you via Facebook, or like how are they getting to your page?
So, you know, we advertise a lot.
Hmm.
We've got our public Facebook page, and um my wife's kind of my media guy. So
Uh-huh.
she does a lot of the editing and the creating of that type of content.
Right.
Um don't generate a whole lot from that really.
No, we don't either.
I
Really.
don't know if it's a lot of guys want to kind of sit on the sideline and kind of watch from a distance for a while before they jump in. But a lot of the guys that I talk to, I go to a lot of these like private Facebook pages and I'll
Sure.
just, make a post about, new Western hunters and,
Hmm.
um, and those guys are there that are actually like they're searching. They're wanting some help.
Right.
So
Right.
so the guys that usually find us that we usually get connected with, those are the guys that are really seeking help.
That are really seeking help.
Yep.
What's the biggest? So, of all the things out there, you mentioned tag, equipment not cheap. So, like when you think about what the biggest hurdles are, is it the tag? And then if the tag's the biggest hurdle, you know, it's got to be gear, I would think. Because, I mean, how does one go from not elk hunting to lightweight gear, cold weather gear, rain gear? I mean, you probably got to think this. You got to be thinking in a global perspective here because you're going to potentially need a lot of things. So, like, how are you breaking this down from them so that it's digestible?
Sure. So I actually in the course itself, I've got a picture
Okay.
and it's oh doggone, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Um he's the he's the hunter that's like spearing and blow dart and everything right now.
Oh, that's
Um
not Tim Wells, is it?
yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. His name was right on the tip of my tongue.
Right, right, right,
Uh
right.
so so I actually have a picture of Tim Wells archery hunting elk
Uh-huh.
in like you remember that old camouflage from Walmart, the
Oh
Liberty
yeah.
brand?
Oh yeah.
That old Liberty brand. So
Uh-huh.
so he's in a real tree like Liberty brand long sleeve t-shirt,
Yeah.
blue jeans, and white tennis shoes.
I believe
And,
it. Yeah.
and he's archery hunting elk.
Yep.
Like you just don't have to have, a lot of stuff that
All
guys
that.
think you have to have.
Right.
You know, you've got to have a way to get it out. So you got to have a pack
Mm-hmm.
and it's got to fit you right. It really doesn't matter what brand it is
Right.
because they're all building good stuff.
Good
Like
stuff.
even
Right.
even the cheaper stuff's pretty good. Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got a frame pack that I bought from Bass Pro Cabela's that I still use
Really.
at times.
Yeah.
Mean, it works fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It's not the quietest in the world, but I just use it for packing meat out.
Sure.
I don't hunt with it per
Right.
se, um but I've packed a lot of meat out with it.
Okay.
Works fine. Like,
Right.
but you gotta have some way to pack it out. You're not gonna pack it out with a JanSport backpack or something like that.
No, no, no.
So, you gotta have a way to get your meat out. Um, and you gotta be the biggest thing is getting yourself ready. A lot of the gear, guys can get by
Mhm.
with what they've already got. If you're already hunting, chances are you've probably already got enough stuff.
Mhm.
And if you don't, you can get some pretty cheap stuff, Amazon, you can get some synthetic stuff, for lightweight, stuff that breathes real well.
Right.
You can get some fairly cheap stuff. It doesn't have to be Kuiu or Sitka. Now, don't get me wrong, that stuff is nice, but
Super good. Right.
it's
Yeah.
I'm not and that's what I always try to say, like I'm not knocking it. If you can afford it, get it. But
Right.
if that's what's going to keep you from going, because you can only learn so much through these screens. And,
Sure.
even these guys, I talk to all these guys. I feel like I know them.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them, I feel like I've known them, forever. And I've only seen them through a screen,
Right.
I've only actually ever met two of them in person.
Yeah.
So, uh, you know, but there's only so much you can actually glean out of this through a screen before you actually get out there and put it to use
Yeah.
and try.
Oh yeah.
You got to try it and to learn.
And the parallel I think for what we do is I say this all the time because I don't ever want to devalue someone training in the gym because you get a lot of power development. You can do a lot of conditioning, injury prevention, just general strength, right? But what I have to tell our clients is I need you now to go, you've done this stuff in the gym. I need you to go ruck. I need you to go shoot your bow or rifle, if that's what you're going to do. And then I want
Hmm.
you to come back to me and I want you to tell me where I always call it energy leaks or weak spots, right? Because if we've done this, I can pretty much tell you this is going to work. But if for you particularly, maybe it's you're a little wobbly in the shoulders, or maybe you've got a little hip pain somewhere along the way. And I think it's the same thing. You're telling them, hey, here's how you do this. Now I need you to go out and practice some of this stuff and go. So do you dive into them? I bet you do. Like with what kind of food you're going to pack on the mountain? Okay.
Yep.
Do you have them practice with that food before they go to the mountain. Now,
Yep.
why? Well, so I
Because
know
I
why
don't want to.
but why do
Because
you
I
do
don't
it?
want them hunkered up. Because I don't want them hunkered up behind a tree.
Amen, right?
I
That's
want
it.
them hunting.
Yep, that's it. That's it. Like when we tell runners before you go out and get all this carbohydrate, goo, gel stuff, that's why at the half mile mark of like most half marathons, there's 30 porta potties because you got all these novice guys that are taking all this stuff and it hits them. And exactly. So, you don't know. But so even like we know, and again, you talk about your dehydrated foods or whatnot. Do you say, okay, we're going to lay this all out. Here's your pack, because everybody hunts different. I've got clients that have gone on, your traditional backpack hunts. And I've also got clients that they're going hunting during the day and they're going back to a very nice lodge at night. So
Hmm.
there's a difference in what they've got to pack on a day in. Um, do you show them like, again, putting that pack together, how does all this stuff fit in that day pack versus what you might need once you actually tag that bull, right? Are you putting that stuff
Yep.
together for him?
Yep. So like, especially like with the food and stuff, um, like my daily bag doesn't change that much. My daily food bag, whether I'm going to be, so I don't do a lot of, I guess it is backpack hunting, but I don't do a lot of super deep, extended way out, backpack hunts.
Right.
Um, I guess it'd be more what they call a spike camp,
Yeah.
where I'm still a couple miles from the truck,
Yep.
for a couple of days.
Yep.
That's kind of more. A lot of my hunting does take place closer to the road, just because that's the style that I like to do, and that's
Okay.
where I found the most success. So that's just me. Everybody's
Hmm.
got their own. And that's one thing that's been really was kind of hard about this at first to kind of wrap my mind around is I didn't want to be forcing anybody into like my opinion because
Sure.
there's so much of this that is based off of your own opinion and your own
Hmm.
personal preference. Everybody does the thing different. Um, even when it comes to archery, elk hunting, some guys are bugling, some guys are spotting and stalking, some
Right.
guys are, sneaking through dark. There's so many ways to do the thing. And so that was one thing I really had to work pretty hard at, making sure that I didn't just, force my opinion on. But yeah, when it comes to like just your pack, like you've
Hmm.
got your hunting stuff, like I'm going to need this for a day's worth of hunting, whether that be, your tripod, if you're taking a spotting scope, you're buying,
Hmm.
whatever, that you need, your kill kit. Obviously, you need to be carrying your kill kit with you every day.
Right.
Um, just whatever those things are. And then when it comes to like food, so like the way I do it is I break it down every day. And
Hmm.
I want my food laid out if I can before I leave home. That doesn't always happen. I
Hmm.
I have been known to put them together on the tailgate before
Hmm.
I hike in.
Right.
But but one big thing that you're going to run into in Western hunting is the mental side of it.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how hard you've trained. It doesn't matter if you've got the best gear in the world.
Hmm.
When the weather's not cooperating or you're having a hard time finding animals and maybe it's steep or maybe you're dealing with a lot of blowdown, and it's a struggle every day or,
Hmm.
whatever. There's that mental grind every day. And the one way that I know for sure to help keep from other than, putting yourself through hard things is to make sure you're drinking enough
Right.
and you're eating enough.
Okay.
So when and that's one thing I talk about a lot is when I make up that daily bag for my food bag. So I'll have a gallon Ziploc bag that I put a day's worth of food in, and
Okay.
I'll have one bag for each day. So if I'm hunting from the truck, if
Hmm.
I'm just camped at the truck, I'll just grab a new bag every day and throw it in when I go. If I'm backpacking, however long I'm going to be, I'm going to take that many days worth of food. And at the end of the day, I want that bag empty.
Right.
I want it that way I know I've eaten enough. It keeps you from eating all your good snacks at the beginning of the hunt, so you got some good stuff every day,
Right.
but it also makes sure that you're eating enough because it's so easy to get busy when you're out there and adrenaline, you're running on a lot of adrenaline and excitement and you can forget to eat,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and eventually that will catch up.
That's awesome, man. Um, where are you going this year?
So I'm going to Colorado on a over the counter second rifle hunt.
Okay. And let's see, that was is that October, I think you told me?
Yeah, I think
Yep.
I think it opens the 24th. I should know that, but
Yeah. You got time. You got time. And training, we're gonna start training. Oh gosh, what about another month or so?
yeah, yeah. So I guess actually I guess here in the next week or so I'm need to start the 4 week
We'll start with the
to
conditioning
get ready.
program. Yeah.
Yeah, the conditioning program.
We'll
Yep.
start with the basics. My gosh, though, I mean, as far as you working outside all day long, you probably got some good acclimation to at least heat as far as that goes. Surely you won't have to deal with that when we get to that
Hopefully
level.
not.
But no, no, it'll be fun because what we're going to do with you is basically get you ready then to train. So like with what Anthony's doing right now with that 3 month backcountry is again, it's a we call it a base conditioning, a ramp up and a dialing in. So we go from pretty generic type movement patterns, stuff that most people know. We just arrange it
Mhm.
to a little more conditioning to where now we're focusing in on what I would define as more hunt specific, even down to like with you, you may not be doing archery, but we do rifle stability drills because, yeah, you probably are going to have a tripod, bipod, or maybe you're going to be on a pack, or you might be like my girl up in Maine who the moose all of a sudden appeared at 220 yards and she had to freehand that puppy and she drilled it, right? So I mean, you never know what you're going to run into in a scenario up there. But
Yep.
but I do like the aspect. The nutrition aspect is huge. Hydration. I mean, people don't even understand that even a little bit of dehydration can cause bad decision making, performance, right? So,
Mhm.
how did I miss? Well, it can happen, right? But that's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. This is a fantastic program. How do we find you? Like on social media, what's the handles and websites and all that? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so Instagram and Facebook are both just Western Hunter 101.
Okay.
Um, YouTube is Western Hunter 101.
Hmm.
So we tried to keep them all just as close to
Sure.
exactly the same as possible. That way it's real easy and more branded.
Right. Right. I got you. Yeah. Very
Yep.
important. Yeah. And by the time this airs, you see that you've got a group starting now, like a midsummer group you were looking at. We were talking about that earlier. So what does that entail?
Yeah, so we don't really so when we very first started, when I very first got in contact
Uh
with
huh.
you here a couple of years ago, we were doing prototypes. So I was, wanting to make sure I had it right,
Hmm.
because you know how it is when you know something, you can be talking and be talking way over somebody's head and not even
Hmm.
realize it because it just seems simple to you. You can
Right.
skip steps
Right.
and and I knew I wanted it to be pretty, at least the lessons part of it, pretty elementary because
Hmm.
there's a lot of guys that just need to start at that level.
Right.
Um, so we ran some groups through as prototypes just to kind of make sure I was covering that
Right.
okay.
Right.
Um, but now they you don't actually go through the lessons as a group. You just take them at your own pace. Anybody that's in
Ah.
there,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
anybody that's in there, they
Yeah.
can go back and a lot of times I'll reference guys
Hmm.
to, hey, go back and to this chapter,
Hmm.
whatever, and that'll answer your question. Um, just helps me from having to answer the same question a
Of
thousand
course.
times.
Of course.
But yeah, no, yeah, just whenever a guy signs up, they can take that at their own pace as fast or slow as they want, as many times as they want. And then we just again meet on Saturday, or I mean on Thursday
Thursdays.
evenings.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes there's 4 or 5 guys show up. Sometimes it could just be you and me, and
Right.
those are the best. I really like those when it's just one guy that shows up.
Going back and
Those are
forth.
I, I hate to say that because it is great to have, the whole
The
group's,
brotherhood. Right.
input on stuff and the whole brotherhood thing. Cause there's a lot of other
Uh
experience,
huh.
especially now we've been doing this a couple years. So, I mean,
Right.
we've got guys like Brent, he's filling tags like crazy. That guy's got a lot of experience.
Right.
He's a wealth of knowledge. He's great to for me to even ask questions to you
Sure.
like, hey, what's this sound like to you? How's this
Hmm.
sound? So now we're starting to get some age, or some experience to these guys. that are coming. But the fun thing is when it's just me and another guy one on one, and
Yeah.
especially if they're working on their first tag,
Uh-huh.
because we can screen share and we can e-scout. You don't want to share your spots with everybody, but
Right, right.
yeah, we
You're,
can get down into some nitty gritty. So
you're the
that's a lot of
coach.
fun.
You're the coach. You can see the spots. This is
Yeah,
beautiful. This is beautiful. I'll tell you why. It's because, like, when we're talking to, and it doesn't matter what kind of hunting, but let's say specifically Western. I always feel like for some people, this might be once, two, maybe three times in a lifetime, right? So stack the deck in your favor.
hmm
With what we do to prepare them physically, that's one aspect to it. But you have the ability to help them go out and have a really good experience versus suffering through years, maybe, of
yep,
failure. So good product. I like it, man. I like it. Well, hey, thanks for being on tonight. I really do appreciate it. I know you got a lot of irons in the fire, but this was one that we wanted to do for a long time because I think with our listeners, I think that we get a lot of adult onset hunters as well, and so I think this could
sure,
be something that could help them out tremendously. So thanks, man.
absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Have a great evening.
You too. Thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
man. Josh is a happy guy. I love talking to him, and I really admire the work he has done to launch Western Hunter 101. He has covered all the bases, and I think it's a brand and a service that's going to continue to grow as more hunters find out about it. One thing I took away from this conversation was about practicing with food, specifically those freeze dried meals prior to your hunting experience. And I feel the same way about supplements and even electrolyte products. Right now, we use Wilderness Athlete Hydrate and Recover two ways. So during or post cardio sessions, I went out for a run today, hot, humid. I'm going to use that to refuel and recover. And the second way that I practice with this and use it is on work days at the farm, planting, weed whacking, spraying, not just with the side by side, but also backpack sprayers hiking up and down those hills. And it's easy to get dehydrated. Summers in Missouri, they're brutal. And I like to practice with the products we're going to use in the field and in the gym. So if you're curious, I'm going to invite you to take a look at the Hydrate and Recover line. I think once you try it, it will find a permanent home in your workout bag and your hunting pack. Well, that's going to do it for the July episode. Thanks for listening in and allowing us to be a part of your hunting and fitness journey. We appreciate you. Have a great day. You stay fit to hunt.